What's up, everyone? Welcome to another UFC Quick Picks here on the Mayo Media Network. We have UFC 306 this weekend. Sean O'Malley versus Mayo Dvalishvili in the main event. Only 10 fights on the slate, but honestly, it's a super fun card to break down. There's going to be a lot of fun action fights throughout the card and a lot of money to be won on DraftKings. As always, I'm here to give you my favorite cash game play, tournament play, salary play, and a matchup I like as well. And let's dive right into it with a cash game play here in Mayo Dvalishvili at 7.7K. Dvalishvili is the underdog in the main event, plus 115 to Sean O'Malley. I think that might be a value, but I understand the logic behind backing O'Malley in the fight as well. He's a more technical striker, a more effective distance manager. And Merab's not the most technical fighter in the world. However, Merab is a literal machine, a grinder, and has insane metrics that make it hard to avoid him from a fantasy perspective. He's averaging 4.5 significant strikes landed per minute, 6.43 takedowns landed per 15 minutes, and what's even more impressive than that is that he's averaging 17 plus takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. That's more than one takedown attempted per minute. And if you look back to his last 5-round fight against Petr Yan, Merab attempted 49 takedowns in 25 minutes. It's just, this is an otherworldly type of human being here to be able to pull off that kind of offensive production. And although Sean O'Malley may defend takedowns, 62% takedown defense, in some fights he hasn't had a lot of success doing so. In his fight against Petr Yan, Yan got in on him, landed 6 takedowns on 13 attempts, didn't have too much difficulty, was able to control Sean for more than 5 minutes. So I think Merab is likely to have some success. The fight is supposed to extend a bit, minus 120 over 4.5 rounds. So although I think O'Malley does have some early KO equity, the fight's still projected to extend. Merab's takedown prop in this fight is like 8.5, juiced toward the over. So I think you have to play Merab in cash games. He just has a massive floor and ceiling in an extended fight. 167 fantasy points the last time he won a 5-round fight. His only 2 losses, which came in 3 rounds, he scored 99 and 73. So he's just one of the best fantasy performers in the sport. In cash games at 7.7K, I will be locking him in. All right, my tournament play of the week, I'm going to roll with Joshua Van at 8.9K. This isn't a super strong take, more of a semi-contrarian fighter where I think there's going to be a ton of people who pay up to Raul Rosas Jr., rightfully so, at 9.7K. There's going to be a ton of ownership in the mid-range, and this upper 8K, lower 9K range may get under-owned, maybe overlooked, and Joshua Van's coming off a knockout loss to Charles Johnson. That may impact ownership. He's getting an opponent in Edgar Chairez, who just won by submission in round 1, and I do think Chairez presents some danger to Van early in the fight, but ultimately Van is a superior prospect in my eyes. He's a superior striker, throws better volume, just a really dangerous combination boxer too. On the inside, he can attack multiple levels, he has fast hands, and he's topped out at 120 and 156 significant strikes over 3 rounds. And I just don't think Edgar Chairez can keep up with him. Chairez, in his only 2 decisions, has landed 51 and 25 significant strikes. He's been taken down 7 times while landing 0 takedowns of his own in 4 tracked fights. His metrics just aren't strong. His defense, he's defending strikes at 43%. He's defending takedowns at 41%. There's just not a lot to suggest that Chairez can keep up with the pace of Van over 3 rounds, despite maybe being able to hurt him early or maybe landing the first takedown of his career, for example, early. Chairez has some upside, but I really like the pacing of Van, and he just gets more threatening as the fight goes on. If he can survive a couple of early exchanges, which I think is likely, Van can kind of press forward, wear you down, and potentially find a finish in the mid or later rounds. Van is minus 245 to win. He's only plus 230 to win inside the distance, but I do think that will limit his ownership to a degree. Has scored 135 and 106 already in wins in the UFC, and the fighters priced above him, Zellhuber and Yaregui, don't necessarily have the best projections either, more likely to fight an extended fight. So I do think there's a chance that Van can survive, throw strikes at a high pace, maybe get a late round finish, or dominate in the latter half of the fight, put up a decent score, and still be a standout within this upper 8K, lower 9K range. Because he's not going to be chalk, I don't mind him. Like the matchup for him, I think it's a step down in competition, and I'm willing to play him more than the field here at 8.9K in tournaments. All right, next up, my salary play of the week. I'm just going to roll with the other championship fight here and talk about Valentina Shevchenko. I think it's a good matchup to target, and I definitely think Alexa Grasso can win. I do prefer Shevchenko from a fantasy perspective at 7.9K. She's the underdog. She was clearly winning the first fight against Grasso until she made a mistake, got her back taken, and was submitted late in the fourth round. In the rematch, Shevchenko was also ahead by most people's assumptions, but Grasso ended up pulling off a split decision draw. So fair play. Grasso's a good fighter in her prime at UFC Noche. I definitely think Grasso can make rounds competitive here. But in 45 minutes of cage time, Shevchenko has landed more significant strikes. Shevchenko has outlanded Grasso in takedowns 8-1. And it's just hard to project Grasso for a ton of offensive production. She isn't a great wrestler offensively or defensively, and Shevchenko's a better defensive striker than her. So of the two, I'm more concerned about Grasso exceeding value in an extended fight where Shevchenko is wrestling at a high pace, and in her two non-victories, she scored 81 in a fourth round loss and 91 in a draw. If she had won either of those times, she probably would have topped 120 fantasy points. So I feel pretty comfortable that if Shevchenko gets her hand raised, she's going to score fairly well. I also think Grasso could score well. Grasso's been getting credited with a ton of non-significant strikes in both matchups, which is why her results have been pretty strong too. And if she beats Shevchenko again, I think it's probably going to either come inside the distance, capitalizing on a mistake of Shevchenko, or an extended competitive fight in which she racks up another 150 plus non-significant strikes and scores 90 to 100 points. So she can still end up optimal at 8.3K as well, but I lean towards Shevchenko as the superior control fighter, the superior wrestler, the superior minute winner. 7.9K, I think a real decent place to save salary this week. And finally, my matchup of the week, I'm going back to the mid-range with Manuel Torres versus Ignacio Bahamondes. Very competitively lined fight. Torres is a slight favorite at -125, Bahamondes plus 109 on DraftKings. Torres is 8.2K, Bahamondes is 8K, and Torres has fought 17 times professionally, only made it to decision once. The vast majority of his fights are ending in round one, and all three of his UFC fights have ended in round one to the tune of 103, 105, and 114 point scores on DraftKings. He's plus 120 to win inside the distance, which is a really strong line for this price. I don't love him necessarily as a talent. I'm unsure of him as a talent, but if Torres wins, it's very likely to come early, and that gives him plenty of fantasy upside, and he makes for a very strong target at 8.2K. Bahamondes is the leverage side, the fighter who's proven more over an extended period. He's won decisions in the UFC, and he also fights at a high pace, and I kind of lean toward him in the matchup because I think he has a decent chance of surviving the early exchanges, in which case he's just proven a lot more over an extended period than Torres has. And maybe Torres will prove me wrong. We just don't have the footage one way or another. But point being, Bahamondes has a clear path to victory on paper in an extended fight, and the fight as a whole is -350 to end inside the distance. I like Bahamondes a lot as the leverage side there, and I think I would lean toward him personally. He's put up scores of 116, 99, and 104. 3 of his last 4 wins, so he's shown fantasy upside already. And based on the pacing of Torres and Bahamondes, I think we're going to see fireworks early and hopefully a finish on one side or the other. That's why it's going to be my matchup of the week there in the mid 8Ks. That's going to do it for this week's UFC Quick Picks. Thank you so much for the support. You can follow me on Twitter, Appley, @TTP, EstablishTheRun.com for all your DraftKings breakdowns needs. Just went an hour and a half with my boy Gordo Gambles, breaking down every single fight on that slate. Full written breakdowns available as well, rankings, projections, everything you need to have success on DraftKings this weekend. Thanks to Pat and the team for having me on, and best of luck in your contest this week, everyone. Stay safe. We will talk to y'all soon. Peace.